Hey, so hope everyone's doing well today. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about UX, user experience, or UX design for libraries. First, I want to go over some definitions of user experience. It's the process of enhancing user satisfaction with a product by improving the usability, accessibility, and pleasure provided in the interaction with the product. It came about a few decades ago in relation to human-computer interaction. At the time, it was used to describe all aspects of users' experience when interacting with the product, service, environment, or facility. So one way it's been described to me before is to think of it as human-centered design, where in this case, the library would be the product. Hazenzahl and Trzaskowski define it as a consequence of a user's internal state, predispositions, expectations, needs, motivation, mood, the characteristics of the design system, the complexity, purpose, usability, functionality, etc., and the context or environment within which the interaction occurs. So is it organizational, a social setting, the meaningfulness of the activity, the voluntariness of the activity? So, everyone has their predispositions about what they think a library should be, and I think the voluntariness of use is a key term in the definition as well. A lot of times when we feel obligated to do something, that might create more of a negative expectation. The term is often contrasted with usability. So usability is a much more narrow concept. It focuses more on eliminating negative experiences, while user experience focuses more on increasing positive experiences. Excuse me. I got a bit of a cold, sorry. So user experience, includes all aspects of usability as well as desirability of a product or service from the user's perspective. So it considers not just, is this easy to use, but is it pleasing to use? Is it pleasing to look at? It utilizes beauty as an end rather than just a means to an end. And so let's talk about it in connection with libraries and librarians now. So as we all know, libraries have a long and rich history of adopting and promoting user-centered philosophy. So it only makes sense for librarians to learn and adopt the principles of UX design. Library user experience is often central to libraries' missions, not a distraction from or an accessory to them. It can also kind of be used as a tool to hone in on your own librarianship style. A study conducted by Craig McDonald in 2015 in association with the Pratt Institute School of Information and Library Science showed that UX librarians, while they share a user-centered mindset and many common responsibilities, including research, usability testing, and space service assessments, each individual UX librarian also is somewhat unique in how they approach and describe their work. And in fact, many libraries across the country have created a UX librarian position. However, having a specific UX librarian in-house may not be feasible for every library, either due to lack of funding or lack of understanding about what a UX librarian does. In a recent report on academic library renovations, librarians and architects said they valued understanding user needs, but only 31% of the sample on that statement acted on that statement and formally collected user data to plan and assess user experience. Often, time and money constraints tend to dictate renovations or any changes done. However, user needs should still come as a top priority. As Stuart put it, can you imagine the project manager saying out loud, we know the system isn't going to work, but we wanted to be able to click off the delivered on time box? Of course not. So that is why, especially for libraries, it's crucial to take into consideration user needs in order to get things done right the first time. A lot of librarians we've seen have lost a lot of funding in recent years, so there's really it's really important to get things done right the first time to avoid the cost of having to redo things or the negative experience of having to adapt to something that doesn't really fit your needs. And the job of a UX librarian is to create a compelling experience by understanding and improving all the various touch points users have within the library. And this can be both physical and digital. Many UX librarians across the country are involved in both the physical and digital aspects of the library. Some librarians, which I think are in charge of libraries that are strictly online, of course, don't have to concern themselves with physical spaces. But this definitely requires you to step out of your role as a librarian in order to experience the library as a user. And this can really be beneficial in getting all library administration and staff on board with user experience, because when they begin to think of themselves as people whose work impacts users, they begin to make it clear that just learn how to do it right is not a viable solution to user experience problems. It involves a lot of qualitative research, but this research will not only inform your work, but it also will support your work when trying to get everyone on board to the changes that you want to make. According to Kuglicic and Couture, combining several low-effort techniques, libraries can begin to integrate a consistent approach to assessing and improving the UX of their physical spaces, even with minimal institutional support. One story I read about an academic library who wanted to improve their user experience. They got photographic evidence of how the furniture moved about the library during the day, and then used that evidence to do like a questionnaire with the students to find out how they can arrange the furniture or arrange for new furniture in order to better suit their needs. These efforts will lay the foundation for better understanding and acceptance of user experience work within the library, as well as making improvements to library spaces that matter to the users. There's some really simple ways that you can begin to employ methods of collecting feedback with low barrier to entry, such as easel questions, comment boxes, and reply cards. One library, in addition to being low cost and building a foundation of small victories, these techniques also provide an essential user perspective. Another really good example of a low-cost, low-barrier data collection that I thought was a really neat idea is to just set up an easel in the library with different prompts for patrons to respond to, like, I wish my library knew, or I like that my library ... or I don't like that my library ... So it's a good way to learn about the many ways patrons use and interact with the library, including comments regarding outlets, furniture, lighting, helpful staff, and even emotions they experience when using the library. Some changes you might want to do may involve more significant investments. So making a well-grounded argument for that investment is crucial. Having data that support the needs for these changes as well as data that show the changes were successful. Small changes that you've already made were successful will support your argument. I read one anecdote about another academic library that thought their projector might be better utilized in the common room to do movie nights. After having it set up for a while, they learned that students preferred to use that space just for studying. So they moved the projector, and now it's used as advertisement for library events and services. So, sometimes the things that you want to change don't necessarily work, and having evidence of that as well, and evidence of how you've changed it to improve it more will further back your argument. A lot of user experience that's being done in libraries right now is primarily being used as just a research tool. The main reason being is that, as a librarian, you can say, this needs to be improved. Here's the evidence I've collected that says so. But, it's often up to administration whether or not those changes get made. So conducting solid research really helps in establishing organizational buy-in with peers and administration. And in fact, organizational buy-in is the only way user experience design in a library can work. You really have to have everyone on board. Another challenge is that some people might see it as a negative thing. You might get some comments like, well, why would you want to change this? Or, this is the way we've done it for years. What's wrong with the way we've been doing it? But by having your staff position themselves as users, then you're framing UX in a context where they're trying to improve a place that they have affection for. And so you can shift the assumption that UX is primarily just negative criticism. Another good way to ensure organizational buy-in is to align UX with the library's strategic plan. Start with low-cost, high-impact projects. And start with a known problem. If there's an issue in your library and everyone's like, man, everyone is on board that this is, an issue that needs to be fixed, then that's a good time to tackle UX and solve that problem with an innovative solution. And also, while these data collection methods are low effort, it still requires users' time. So it's important for you to also show your patrons and keep them updated on how their input is being used. So finally, I just want to add that user experience is, especially now, is something that cannot be ignored as technology becomes more and more interactive. People are looking for an experience, not just a product. And the same goes for our physical spaces, our physical third spaces where we live outside of our home and offices. So librarians can really stay ahead of the curve by adopting and implementing the concepts of UX design. Thank you.